You're listening to the Viral Volley Podcast. Now here's your host, Rob, on the mic.
Hey, good day, everyone. I'm Rob Aspero with the Viral Volley Podcast with David Hunt of Pepperdine University, Dan Friend of Lewis, and Jay Hossack of George Mason, all playoff bound. Actually, Dan's already deep into his, so to speak. So great win for him this last weekend. But hey, a lot of action here in our week 13 of College Volleyball Weekly Men's Division 1-2 edition. So what matches caught your eyes this last week in week 13? And we'll start with you, Dave Hunt, on the West Coast.
Yeah, there are two matches, actually. I thought UCLA coming out with the lineup that we saw a little bit against Grand Canyon with Kevin Cobrine opposite and Cole, the Canadian. I don't know how to pronounce his last name.
Drinsky?
There you go. At outside hitter, I thought that was a pretty powerful lineup for him, a good serving lineup. And then Ball State upsetting, or I don't know if it was an upset. Technically, it was an upset because Ohio State was ranked below them, but just with Joel in his last season, every match, might be his last. So that's sort of a feel-good story as they make a run in the MIVA playoffs.
Oh, speaking of running in the MIVA, let's go to Dan Friend, who could be coming across a Ball State team eventually. What's happening? What are your choices?
Well, yeah,
this week?
Certainly Ball State was one. I thought that was they came off a 5-game win at McKendree the week before, and so they got the opportunity to host that first round at home against Ohio State, and they took care of business in 4. The other one was McKendree and Purdue-Fort Wayne. Those guys went 5, and Purdue-Fort Wayne, I thought, had them on the ropes, and McKendree stayed them off in the 5th game, and were able to get that win. And so I thought that was pretty key for McKendree, and those guys are headed up to Loyola this weekend.
Yep. All right, Jay, how about you? Some of the matches that caught your eye this last week in week 13?
I think the Ball State story is pretty cool. I mean, they're in Joel's last season, and they have not beaten Ohio State since 1997 in the MIVA playoffs. I mean, granted, they didn't meet them every single year, but when they did, Ohio State had their number. And so hats off to Joel and his crew for getting a win out of that one. And then how about, and we might talk about it later, how about the team that I called the dark horse in the Conference Carolinas, Belmont Abbey, coming up here against North Greenville, coming up in the semis. That's going to be unreal. So looking forward to that match.
Now, as a backpedal a little bit, but Dan, dealing with the now emotional factor for Ball State, do you prepare your team differently in the event you play them? Just out of curiosity, from a non-coach, non-athlete perspective?
No, there's no change. We got to go play, and we got to go win, and our guys don't need any motivation to go play Ball State or practically anybody in conference. They just want to beat everybody. And so there's no, hey, somebody's last season. And I agree with Jay's comments just about it's pretty cool as he's got his group playing pretty well. But from our side, they're the next opponent in front of us, and that's how our guys are treating it, and they want to play great. So
I think that's more reflection of Dan, right? When he says, like, they want to beat everybody, I really think that's coming from the head coach.
He's projecting.
I'm just guessing. I'm not in his gym, but I'm just guessing.
By the way, kudos on Dan looking all fresh and crispy there with that hairdo and a freshly shaved beard. I mean, you're looking fantastic, old man.
Do you have frosted tips, or is that gray hair?
That's just a little frosted gray from the sunlight coming in on my face, guys. Okay?
Gotcha.
Well, I don't know if you saw Jeff Alzina from the AVP broadcast this summer. When I saw him for the first time video with a frosted beard, I started calling him Volley Gandalf. But you can actually be Volley Gandalf now, Dan, because I've been seeing him more regularly. Hey, I want to get back to the volleyball and ask.
Years.
What's that?
I said maybe in about 15 years we can get to Gandalf stage.
Right now, you're sort of that 1990s NSYNC boy band look going on my screen.
Oh, gosh. That's even worse. I'll go back to Gandalf, please.
All right, fair enough.
Well, I'm going to bounce this question off of Dave Hunt since he's drinking, and I'm going to interrupt his drink right there. But with what happened with the UCLA BYU series, what is making UCLA so successful against BYU?
I mean, UCLA, when they serve the ball well, they're real tough to beat. We experienced that the first time we played them at their place. They in the I mean, they ended up beating us in 5. 2 of those sets weren't even close because they got hot from the service line. Austin and Kevin, or not Kevin, but Sam Cobrine were real good. And BYU, you get them off the net and, their offense slows down, everything slows down. And it's just, anytime you have to side out against 2 and 3 blockers over time, it gets tough for anybody. And UCLA serving puts you in those situations. Now, the question is, going up to Provo, can they do that? Can they sustain that over a long period of time? Who knows? When they played BYU to start the year, it was a little bit funky. GCU had played UCLA already. So UCLA had a match under their belt, BYU didn't. And then Will Stanley was out. And then when Will Stanley came back, I mean, BYU clobbered them. So I'm not quite sure that it's one of those things where it's, hey, they got their number or they know how to play them. It's just UCLA can serve the ball well, and that beats a lot of teams, regardless of whether they're conference opponents or not.
I want to piggyback on that real quick. For all the people out there that are talking about why does, this team or that team go after with their serves and you have so many service errors, that's what you have to do. I mean, you can't put lollipops over the net with any top team and expect to be successful. I know that the stat that everybody throws around is, just getting the ball over the net, you win 33% of those points because of whatever reason. That's true. When you're scrapping and you got a free ball over, it's better to put it in play and try to, play defense around and maybe get a step block or a dig and transition it. But when you're going serve receive style, you got to bomb. And a lot of teams live and die by that. And you're seeing a perfect example of what Dave's talking about UCLA. When they're serving the ball well, one of the best teams in the country, they can beat anybody. But that's true for a lot of teams that have guys that can bomb it from the end line. And when they're having a good night, look out.
Yep. Sorry, I'm popcorning questions now, but things are popping up in my head as I talk with you guys. But I noticed that Luke Denton was not in the lineup this last weekend. Is that correct for Loyola?
Yeah, I don't know why. I didn't text the Loyola staff or ask them, so I figured I'd just wait and see maybe if he popped back in the lineup this week and went. But he's a pretty key piece for them.
Yeah.
Lindenwood took a game off of them, and they went 4, and I think they had Devlin Johnson and Colton Brooks both in there. And so certainly a guy they've been riding all season long that's had some great numbers in Luke Denton. And so hopefully he's able to get back on the court for them. So
yeah, they've been a 2-piece puzzle. It's been pretty strong in Cole Schlotthauer and Luke Denton. So it's a shocker to look at the boxes and not see his name in the stat line. So let's go to our next question of the week, which is what teams or athletes really stuck out performance-wise and why? And we'll start again with Dave on the West Coast.
Yeah, for me, it was Kevin Cobrine for UCLA. Now he's played the last 2 matches or last 3 matches for them. 4, I guess, total with both BYU matches. And it's just, yeah, he's going to be a handful on the right side for them. And if he plays on the right and Cole plays on the left, that's some pretty physical guys on the pins. They already have a lot of talent, but now they're getting more physicality out there on the court, which makes it tough.
Yep. Let's jump to Jay on this one.
I'm going to go with Michael Fisher at St. Francis. They're in the playoffs right now against West Virginia, Charleston, West Virginia. I think the last time I checked, he has 148 attempts per match for the season so far. I think he's getting sponsored by Kinesio Tape and Ben Gay. And the kid's shoulder is just robotic. So, every team that's good out there knows they have one guy that can carry the load, but holy smokes, man, the guy literally is taking 50 to 60 attempts per match. And yeah, that's not even close to what most guys are taking.
Yep.
Him and Brett Favre doing those Copperfit commercials next year, I heard, with the name, image, and likeness stuff. I think he'll be right on that.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, the guy's just got a monster arm. It's unreal.
Yep. All right, you, Dan, close it out.
I had 2 guys. So Quinn Isaacson on the Ball State game led his team to a 388 hitting percentage, and I think he had 13 digs in the match, 53 assists. I think ultimately he's in the top 5, I think, in the country in assists per game. And Ball State's, I believe, top 5 in kills per game. They're up there, which is their hitting percentage isn't the highest, but they certainly dig balls and create opportunities for swings, which is going to create more kills. And the other guy I was going to throw some love to was Comas Francisco from McKendree. He had 21 digs in that 5-game win, which was pretty key to those guys wrapping that up. So,
and you guys play Ball State this week, is that correct?
Play Ball State Saturday at 7:00 at our place. Correct.
So from what I've watched on them, they're almost the opposite. They serve the ball in and they look to block and defend you. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, they got a couple guys that can bring it. Like, there's 3 jumpers, so it depends on what Quinn's doing. He can jump or float, but Blake and Caleb are both jumping all the time, and Bryce, they're outside. So, but they do a good job of keeping the ball on you even when they're jumping. And just gotta manage that. For sure.
That's one of the things as I look at those stats, and we were talking about UCLA being good on their serve and relying on that serve almost. It's interesting to see some other teams where they're having success, but I mean, it's all about the pieces you have in your gym. And Felix put up some ungodly block numbers. What was it, 2 weeks ago? But I think that's a function of that. You can't be up there in blocks per set if you just don't have that many opportunities, or you're getting a lot of free balls. So,
yeah. Well, Ball State's definitely got a pretty good pin attack. Blake Reardon and Caleb Janess. So, they had double-digit kills this weekend against Ohio State. But man, their setters at Isaacson, 53 assists, 13 digs, great double-double, and a big win for obviously Ball State against Ohio State. Let's jump into. Actually, I was going to go to next week's action because it was at 2 of the 4 conferences have started playoffs, and we'll definitely go into that. But the ABCA poll came out this week, and was curious on your guys' thoughts on it before we start going into the playoffs. Very little shifting. My team fell out of the top 15 for the first time in a long time, so it's kind of a shocker for me to see. I think it was 2016, but there's a little bit of shifting going on, and as we've been talking about since we've started the season, is the polls can't really look at, but some teams are definitely doing some movement, and some teams are staying right where they're supposed to be, being undefeated like Hawaii. But let's start with Dan on this one, on the thoughts on the poll that came out this week.
I think we've said it before, but the top 8 or 9 are all in kind of the same boat, except for Hawaii. Hawaii's separated, but you saw UCLA beat BYU, and whoever's ranking could shift some of those spots between. I even think BYU 2 through 7 at any given time. Penn State's been doing great things. You got Long Beach in there. You got Pepperdine in there. Pepperdine hasn't been able to play the past couple of weeks. Hopefully they'll get back on this weekend. And so all those teams are kind of intermingling. And I thought you saw Ball State make a little move with a good win against Ohio State. And that's that next tier of teams that's somewhere around 9 to 15. And there's a couple teams right outside of the 15 that could be in there. And so I don't think the poll's that way off. Certainly you could say, hey, maybe Long Beach is 2, or hey, Lewis should be at 7, or I don't know. But I think the poll itself is a pretty good representation of the body of work that's being played out there right now.
Yep. Let's go to Jay on this end.
I think Dan nailed it. Polls are pretty spot on. If you ask me, maybe there's a spot up or down you could argue, but I mean, most of the guys that are doing this they're doing a good job. I'm pretty stoked on where it is. I think it's fine.
Yep. And then anything to add there, Dave?
No, it's getting to that awkward part of the season, right, where we're in playoffs. Teams are going to start losing. I mean, there's just not going to be that many teams playing here pretty soon. I mean, we have 2 makeup matches this weekend. Most MPSF teams aren't playing. And then our playoff is 3 straight days. I mean, by next weekend, the season's over for the MPSF, right? So it's just an awkward time. I think it's just teams sort of are where we are. We know where that line of, like Dan hit on the head in terms of 2 through 9, maybe could shift anywhere around. But yeah, now it's going to be some pretty important volleyball to be played here.
Yep. Well, I actually skipped out of one conference. That's a conference I'm residing in. There were actually a couple of matches this last week. UC Irvine, UC Santa Barbara had a bye week, and Cal State Northridge played Hawaii at their gym. And then you had UCSD. I'm sorry. Let me jump back here. Long Beach State at CSUN. Oh my gosh, I'm jumping way too far ahead here. Hawaii at CSUN, Long Beach State at UC San Diego took care of business both nights. And, from that, you have Rado Parapunov, the AVCA Player of the Week, who had great numbers this week. And there's a discussion that Coburn could have been in the discussion as well because of the upset of BYU. But I definitely want to touch on the Big West because of matches that are remaining. The only 2 conferences with the remaining matches are the MPSF. You also have the Concordia GCU, which I believe is a makeup. Is that correct, David? Yeah.
Me?
Yeah, GCU and
yeah. GCU and Concordia.
And then your guys
making
is
up
a
the one
makeup
from earlier. Yeah. So yeah, everyone else is off. We had tried to this was a built-in bye week to either let you get healthy or to have you make up matches if you missed.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
with that, touching on the Big West, let's go into this coming week's schedule. Half the conferences are in playoffs. We know that last night, a pair of Conference Carolina matches. Number 5 King took down number 4 Barton 3-0, and number 6 number 3 NGU took down Emmanuel 3-0. For the rest of the week, you have UCSB at UC San Diego ×2, and then Long Beach at Northridge and UC at Hawaii ×2. So beyond that, what matches are you guys watching this week that are either playoffs or the remainder of the regular season for the Big West, basically? Let's start with Jay.
I'm going to be watching St. Francis and Charleston, West Virginia. They both split their season series 2-2, and they both won both matches at the other guy's house, which I think can be talked about a little bit. But it's at St. Francis, which is also a little bit of a change, because there were some matches in the last weekend of conference play that could have maybe made a change or made a difference. But that seems to be working in Charleston's favor if they won both those matches out there. So I think the last time I heard, Michael Fisher is going to have 138 attempts at that match coming up. Just, throwing it out there. I'll be watching that match. And again, Barton Abbey, my dark horse call for the year at Conference Carolina, is going up against North Greenville, Fred Battenfield's team. That is going to be a lot of fun to watch. North Greenfield is 0-2 on the year on Belmont Abbey. But don't be surprised if Fred's team doesn't come up with maybe a squeaker here. Something tells me they might be able to pull something out of the hat. So those are the two matches I'll be watching the most.
Well, Jay, while you're talking, I'm going to throw on yours, Sacred Heart at George Mason. Most teams played each other 4 times. You had 2 COVID cancellations, so you only saw them twice, but you took both of them. Any thoughts on your matchup? Just win
Friday night at 7:00. It's gonna be fun.
All right, let's go to Dan.
I don't know what to say. I'm not going to give you any. I'm not going to give you any scouting report. I'm not going to tell you we're going to beat them outright. I'm not telling you we're going to lose. It's going to be at 7:00. Everyone, check it out.
That's the most boring thing I've ever heard you say, right? Like, out of all people to not say those things, come on.
You're not going to hashtag some kind of political social movement right now, Jay?
No. I might play golf today, maybe. Who knows? If the rain holds off. But no, to be honest.
So is that a comment? Is that a comment on what you think about Sacred Heart, that you're going to go play golf instead of practice?
Oh, I'm going to go hit
bulletin board material.
Yeah, that's good. I like that.
It's over. Yeah.
I don't need to watch any film. I'm just going to golf. Here we go.
If you don't think we've already prepared well enough and already gotten this match in our brains as we have to take care of business, you guys are way mistaken.
Hey, the thing that needs to be investigated is, Jay, I texted him about this weekend. Masters was on. He conveniently doesn't have matches, but I'm all about you golfing. The lower your handicap goes, mine's going up. So that means that when we play, I'm getting more strokes. So you keep going out.
You're doing a little handicap management, are you? You just whacking the woods everywhere?
I got to work here. I got to work.
Well, while we're on EIVA tournament, just released, I saw on social, was the EIVA all conference teams. A lot of good names represented. And as expected with the COVID season, it was a lot larger of a team. At least it appeared to me. Maybe that's the normal protocol for the EIVA, but I was excited to see a lot of the guys, a lot of Penn State guys on their NJIT, and Coach of the Year, Danny Concalves, NJIT. So congratulations to him and all the all conference honorees. So with that, I'm going to transition over to Dan over the Miva, who also released their team, and he wasn't the Coach of the Year this year, but instead Nikki Sandlin of McKendree got it. Another quality team with Ryan Coonan, one of his outsides, getting the honors again, along with Tyler Mitchum. So go ahead and talk about what's happening in the MIVA on playoffs. And then if you want to chime in on the all conference team.
Well, certainly Nikki had a great year and is a great representation of the MIVA. I think they the highest they've ever been ranked, highest finish they've had. So congrats to Nikki and her squad. And yeah, we had a couple guys represented on the all conference, as well as there were a lot of good players that were on the first team and second team. And so a lot of those guys were even COVID guys coming back. So it's great to see those guys honored and be able to complete this year as a volleyball, which is been fantastic. So, and then with the tournament, we've got Ball State coming into our place, and we've talked a lot about them, and they're playing well. Last 2 wins, and certainly Joel's last season, and so we're excited to have those guys come in and looking for a high level of, I think, block defense volleyball for sure between both sides. And then you got McKinley going to Loyola, key match there, and is Luke Denton back on the floor, and McKinley lost both times going to Loyola last time. So how does McKinley respond when they go into Loyola's gym and coming off that 5-set 3-hour match they had with Purdue Fort Wayne, and probably a good thing they had the whole week, just to get settled and recovered and back at it against Loyola. And I'm with Jay though, like the match, I want to see North Greenville and Belmont Abbey. I think that'll be a great match. I think Mount Olive is going to edge King. Maybe King's got, King played pretty well in 1 and 3, and they might be able to have something for Mount Olive. But I think Mount Olive is going to be in the finals I might have to go with Jay in North Greenville. I think I'm going to go along with that in the finals on that. So, and then the last one I want to talk about is Pepperdine's back on the court at Stanford. The save, 37 sports strong thing, just, all that stuff going on, and talked about fans. And I think that's going to be a big match, and it's a big match for Pepperdine, in terms of getting back on the court, and, that at-large piece and all those things we talk about a little bit. And UCLA came on for win of BYU. And so I'm eager to see those guys back on and playing against the Stanford team.
Well, it's actually an excellent transition to Dave and the MPSF, because the seedings, at least for the top 4, have been determined, but there's still the 4, 5, 6 that needs, or 5, 6, 7 that need to be determined. But before we go to that, I want you to talk about the matches you'll be watching this week.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that's sort of been interesting is Long Beach State's playing some good volleyball when I watch them play against San Diego, but they got the backup setter is in, and the big German guy isn't playing opposite. So I wonder why that is. They have Godbold at opposite. Do they think he's better? I don't know, but that'll be something to keep an eye on for sure as they keep moving forward. So I'm interested to watch that, and I'm interested to watch Irvine play Hawaii. They played, 3 matches right off the bat early? Yep. Was it 3? Yeah. So just trying to see the improvement there and see what changes are made. Yeah. And then we got 2 matches, and then a few days in between, and then we get on the road for our conference tournament. So
yeah. Well, in regards to the Long Beach, I feel like that with Allen, he's getting really good production and leadership from Ethan Siegfried, who's playing the OH2 position. And Godbold has been playing really good at the outside, and Spencer Olivier has really found himself ever since that Hawaii weekend. I feel like he stepped up his match play that weekend, because in that, I guess it was, we all know there's some animosity that happened and got everyone going, and he had some really good numbers. So I think he liked what he saw there. With Ryan Poole setting, he's just been amazing. Someone they've trained outside hitter coming in and setting. So, and as Al said in the last 2 weeks ago, 1 week ago, was his assistant coach did a great job of training Ryan Poole, the Englishman. So good stuff there. Yeah. And as far as for the Irvine Hawaii series, I'm curious what NIF's going to come out with this weekend, because you haven't seen a stable lineup there that's really been consistent, even from the Oppo perspective. We've been seeing Bowles and Seconda trading, then you've been seeing Francesco Sani there. And
when's the last time we did see a consistent Irvine lineup, though? I mean, NIF's been doing that since last 4 years. Come on.
So definitely going to be keeping an eye on that as well. But I wanted to talk about the MPSF tournament situation, because the top 4 seeds have been established, but what's happening with that tail end there, because there's still a battle to determine who your opponents are going to be in the playoffs.
Yeah, I have no idea. I think it has to do with whether Concordia goes and wins at GCU, and Gianni didn't play so last weekend, so is Gianni going to play this? I mean, who knows? But the reality is, we're going to play whoever. The most likely scenario is that USC plays Grand Canyon, and then we'll see what happens, whether Stanford is 7 or 6. I think that's the most likely scenario, just from looking at the numbers, because then if teams tie at wins, then it goes to overall win percentage and stuff like that. So.
Yeah. Well, gosh, you guys are just killing it on the segues, because as I talk about the Big West Conference, and although the playoffs haven't started, and I definitely want you guys to chime in on this as well, but Hawaii clinched the regular season title with its 2 wins over CSUN this last weekend. Number 2 seed is what can be in contention, assuming that Santa Barbara and Long Beach win the rest of their series. Then it goes to tiebreak and they split. So both matches they played were 3-1 either way in the series. So it's going to go to points from there, which means UC Santa Barbara edges Long Beach State 187 to 181, or a 1.033 to 0.968 advantage in the seating wise. So now we're talking NCAA tournament consideration. How big is that going to be, that point differential and getting into the NCAA tournament? And that situation, feel free to comment. So
my comment would be they're going to play in the semifinals anyway if they're 2 and 3. So what becomes big is if all of a sudden, I don't know, if one of them get beat in the first round, then I think they're out. You know what I mean, in terms of that.
Yeah.
But they're going to play in the semifinals no matter what at 2 and 3. I don't think either one of them can slide down to 4, correct? Where they're on the other side of the semifinal.
right.
Right. So to me, it really doesn't matter. I think they both got to secure those 2 spots. They play in the semifinals, and I think that becomes a big deal from that standpoint. So,
And the big deal is whoever's going to see CSUN in the semis, or in the first round for that matter. Northridge is a team that everybody's not talking about, but they're doing some really nice things there. And I would not want to find them across the net for me in any of those playoff situations.
Yep. Anything else to add there, David?
No, I think this year, we've talked about the lack of cross-pollination or whatever it is. In reality, I think what it does is it gives the committee, it takes out all those BS, like, well, you played 4 non-conference matches on the road and 2 here, and here was the reality is we're going to know who the best teams are in conference by the end of the playoffs, because they're all going to play each other, hopefully. And if you don't get to a match where you get to play, then that's the big knock against you, right? If we lose in the first round, if somebody's looking at us in UCLA, but we lose in the first round, then we shouldn't be in consideration. That's just the reality of it. So I think you almost look at these conference tournaments as their own play-ins or their own brackets, right? Like the West Regional and all that. That's the people's opportunity to play into those.
Yep. Well, just to close it out, UC Irvine is playing in Hawaii this weekend. Then they stay out there the entire time until the Big West tournament, which is going to be hosted at the Simplify Stan Sheriff Center Arena, something like that. So, hey, before we ended though, I wanted to see if you guys had anything else to add on that I may have missed. I've been digging through all the stuff this week and wanted to be sure that we've dotted our I's and crossed our T's. So, anything else we need to mention this week? Nope. No one's big wins or
Not about big wins. This is the last weekend that Stanford will possibly play in their campus, and that needs to be talked about. And hopefully the Save 36 Sports at Stanford, somebody comes up with an idea that makes it feasible for them to come back. But if not, this is the last weekend that Stanford's ever going to play men's volleyball on their campus, and it's an extremely sad moment. So that needs to be brought up.
Yeah. Well,
there was a meeting yesterday, I thought, was something that I read off of Furbringers. Does anybody know anything about that?
Yeah, the article I read this morning said that the door has been left open, or there's a crack left open in terms of the 36 Sports Strong, the representation of that group. The president of the university wanted to meet with them, and I guess he's got a athletic subcommittee that's together. The thing that I keep just wondering, and obviously if they can save Stanford men's volleyball, that's awesome. That's the bottom line. But what have they done to these sports in terms of what does the future look like for these sports for the next 4 years, with no recruiting class this year, no quality recruiting class in 22? Now you're looking at, are some of these kids just disgruntled at the university, at the treatment and all this? Like, I think you've set these programs back, 5 years. If they decide that they're going to keep them, it's just like, you couldn't have had these conversations earlier. What the hell, and it just shows a lack of foresight.
Well, I was talking to Charlie Ekstrom of Stanford Beach last night, and she was, talking about the 1136 Sports Strong movement, and she is indicating that as of recently, they've raised up to 28 to 30 million dollars just on their own from alumni and
Mhm.
contributors in the community, and then teams like wrestling, one of the sports that's canceled, they got a national championship this year. They've
Yeah.
had incredible seasons. Lacrosse, all these teams are doing phenomenal. So, and the donations continue to come in. So, be kind of not wise to shut the door on these programs, so to speak. So, it's definitely something that I'm hoping that our listeners and fans can jump on is Save Stanford Sports. They are. They've been one of the most powerful powerhouses athletically in the nation, and nothing but high caliber people from there. We know from working with them, playing against them, and
Mhm.
seeing them in the Olympics and professional sports, and just in their professional occupations. So be sure to check out Save Stanford's the movement there at hashtag. Go and support the causes, contribute if you can, and watch them this week too as well. Like Jay was saying, could be the last time we see them. So want to support that crew, Costi and his crew up there up north, and it's unfortunate if this all goes through the way that Stanford is hoping it does, but hopefully we can see more volleyball, more other sports at Stanford. Hey, gentlemen, I can't thank you enough again for your time this week. Good luck in your matches as we all enter the playoff part of the season. This COVID year, it's been awkward and weird and a lot of adjusting and adapting, but I think in the end, we're going to see some really good volleyball, and you're going to see some teams going at it with all they've got. So, gentlemen, look forward to speaking with you next week.
Hey y'all, thanks for listening to today's episode of the Viral Volley podcast. Be sure to follow Rob at Rob on the Mic on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, or at robonthemic.com. Check you next time. Hey y'all, thanks for listening to today's episode of the Viral Volley Podcast. Be sure to follow Rob at Rob on the Mic on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, or at robonthemic.com. Check you next time.